So hello and a very warm welcome to this deck check about how to play Slippy and how to react in certain situations. Yeah, I looked it up a bit. I did play Slippy before, like the last big tournaments, and I just saw how good he performs. I looked at the numbers a bit. If you look at Fabrary and also the win rates of the tournament in Singapore, you will see, yes, Slippy does overperform quite a lot. And if you look at what kind of matchups are good and what kind of matchups are not that good, you can see, yes, it's mostly the much played matchups that are quite positive for Slippy. Namely, Syndra, Gravy Bones is still slightly positive as well, is not too bad into the Guardians, and obviously also all the ninjas are quite easy to deal with on Slippy. So I thought I would go and give this a little rundown of how to play Slippy, because I think there definitely are people out there that want to play the deck now as well. It is the most represented deck, obviously, so you have to deal with a lot of mirror matches, but we will get into that now. There are certain matchups that are a bit more tricky. Some of them are positive matchups, but for some reason I still struggle into them, or I don't see how it should be positive. That's just one, which is Prism. Um, yeah, but we will sit down and look at it a bit more in detail now. So first off, to look at what actually is the best thing that you can do with Slippy, what are the good stuff that you can do. There are a lot of high value cards, and also the free go again that comes from the hero ability also helps a lot with what we want to do. So what, in my experience, were the cards that had the most influence in the deck, which obviously Flick Knives and Codex of Frailty are very high up there. But there are some other cards that are very good. In my opinion, also Art of Desire Body, especially when you play against an aggro matchup like a Mirror match or a Syndra match, it gives you an extra card for your hand, because most likely they will not block it out because it's just raw damage to them. They don't get disrupted. So they take the damage, you draw a card, and you have more disruption on your hand because of that. If you look at my two favorite cards to play are definitely Leave No Witnesses and Persuasive Prognosis. Both of them are very much disruptive. Progressive Prognosis is a must block for Syndra or other aggro decks as well, because it just takes away at least one card of their hand, and you can choose to take most likely one of the best cards of their hand. If you combine it with the Justinic, you make it quite easy, quite difficult to deal with. And in my opinion, those are like the strategies that we use the most. Obviously, also Kiss of Death in a race matchup when you want to be the more oppressive hero is also amazing, because it is basically 6 damage on board, one through the hit, 4 damage, and the other time with Flick Knives you get 2 damage out of it. So that will be the rundown of the cards that I think are quite the most important in like a matchup that you don't know, or in a matchup that you don't are not prepared, or you just want to do the basic stuff that Slippy does. Next up, I would go through the different matchups and what is good in those matchups and what is needed in those matchups, especially the sideboard. So here we start first with the matchup against Gravy Bones. What are the sideboard cards you put in? What are the strategies you go? We have to put the 2 equipments in, because we do have only the we don't have the head and leg equipment as a base equipment, because that changes within the matchups. So we put in Crown of Providence and Black Tech Whispers, which is quite the basic one. Black Tech Whispers over Snapdragon Scalers, because you can force on hits on the allies to get go again anyway, and you can retrieve it if the game goes longer, and that's not too unlikely to happen with Gravy Bones. We put in 3 Command and Conquers, because that's just one of the best cards of the game. The Hurls for the go again, also the infiltrates for the go again, and a sneaky little spreading plague for the late game when they start to block out our stuff in order to not die, to get to the damage in to kill off. The go agains are very important in this matchup, because you want to handle the allies and the damage like within one go. So the non-on hit go again attacks are for the allies, or the bad on hits from the stealth attacks are for the allies, and then the good stuff is kept for gravy bones. Um, Pick up the point, hurl, the Black Whispers, E-Strike, and back pain in the backside are really good cards to handle the smaller allies with, or also use the daggers, obviously. And then if we are looking at cards that are more used to attack the actual hero, we are with Command and Conquer, Persuasive Prognosis, including Just a Nick. That combination is very good, especially in this matchup, because it banishes 2 cards, which most likely will hit an ally, and also then you might be able to take an ally out of the hand, because the likeliness of them blocking Ziggs is not too high, and with that you can force an on-hit there as well. Bonds of Attraction, the blue version, is also very good there, because it's a must block for them if they have an ally in the grave. Otherwise you can take the ally out of the grave and banish it. They will never be able to play it. That also helps you to get away some of the aggression out there. And then the sneaky little Spreading Plague to deal with in the late game when they want to overblock everything and then just take a couple of damage from that. And with those strategies, I was not too. It was not too difficult for me to overcome pretty much every Gravy Bone so far. I know the matchup ratio is more evened out. It's more like in the 55% for us, but it still is a very good matchup. Maybe it was just not the strategies that Slippy struggles with that I encountered so far, but be happy to try. I hope this little guide to deal with Gravy Bones helped you a bit, and on to the next one, which will be Syndra. So, here again, we do have some things that we switch out. Equipment suite will be the same as in Gravy Bones. It's the most used equipment suite that we have. We do take out Pick Up the Point because the raw damage with Go Again is really not good against Syndra, and we really prefer the 3 block from Infiltrate. Otherwise, it will be a very basic put in. The 6 D-Reacts that we have, 3 Shelters and 3 Sink Belows, and the Command and Conquer for additional disruption. And here the strategy is to disrupt every turn and also block out some damage every turn. They're not too keen on blocking, so you don't need to keep your attack reactions too much, but obviously the very high value attack reactions we can keep, like Tarantul Toxin, for example, something like that we can try to keep. You also have to figure out, do they really want to block out stuff like Kiss of Death, because my Syndra opponents mostly just take the damage because they see, oh, if I block it out, the value potential with Tarantula Toxin is way too high, and they don't want to risk getting into this situation where they just give me extra value. So what are the most important cards against Syndra? In my opinion, every kind of disruptive piece is very, very much the most important thing, like Command and Conquer, Leave No Witnesses, Persuasive Prognosis. Also here, Art of Desire Body is very good because it gives you an extra card, because they will most likely not block it out. If they block it out, you know the next turn is not going to be too big because they have 1 card less. And Mark of the Black Widow also is really good against it. Now, on the defensive play, because we have to get a bit defensive, we need to make sure they can never, as little times as possible, trigger mask, because every mask trigger is a potential of an extreme high damage turn, and we can't really deal with that too well, so we want to keep that from happening. Black Whispers is amazing for early game blocks of the daggers, which makes it easier for you to break the chain of the 3 in a row that hit. Then Shelter from the Storm is amazing because the cards that we have struggles with to deal is the ones that attack for 4. Or if Syndra Flick Knives for an on-hit. Both of these situations can be dealt with Shelter. Either you block the 4 attack card with the react version of it, or when they use Flick Knives, you just discard it from hand to prevent the next 3 damage that will be dealt to you from singular targets this turn. So you completely disable the daggers for 1 turn, which is amazing. And you make it way easier to block the 4 attack damage cards as well, with just the 3 block after that. Sink Below is amazing. It's always amazing. You always put that in. And then some a bit more niche things that I like to do here, or not too niche, but Plague Hive is a very good card against them, in my opinion. not as in it blocks, but if you pitch it, it will destroy their preparation turn. It will, I mean, they can't set up on the turn, so they are forced to attack with everything, even they don't have a mouse trigger. The frailty token makes the daggers useless for one turn, and then yes, the Bloodpox token is not really that good, but mostly you get some value out of it in that matchup, and you need to pitch for the daggers anyway, or for a Command and Conquer, and then you have some slight extra effect from it. And Codex of Frailty obviously disables the daggers for a turn, which is amazing in that matchup. And then like that you try to like deal some damage, but the damage is only with disruption, and then you try to wiggle your way out of there to overall overcome the opponent and deal enough damage. We can't completely fatigue them mostly, but we do have the possibilities of wiggling ourselves out there quite a lot. So next up, again, an aggressive hero that we deal with somewhat on a regular base as well, which is, in my opinion, still a very good hero to play. Also a very good hero to get into the game, Dash.io. So how do we deal with a Dash.io? They boost. They banish their own cards. We banish their cards, so that kind of goes hand in hand. So we play the same game here. Obviously, same equipment speed as with the other ones. Black Tech Whispers and Crown of Providence. We do want the extra block and the potential recursion of the equipment. Then we pick up the point again, just because it just blocks 2, and we also take out Plague because that will not have a huge effect in this matchup, or we can't use it because we need to be able to block with 4 cards if needed, if they have a very high octane turn. So what else do we put in? We know what we do take out now. 3 shelters, 3 sink belows, just because of the very valuable block. Then Command and Conquer for the disruption in case they have setup turn. Infiltrate. Worst case scenario, we can just play Infiltrate and then their boost card for free, because it mostly is a boost card for free, which is still better than nothing, but most likely you'll use it to block. And then Shred, just because it's a 3 block. That's the whole reason behind it. So what is our strategy? We try to disrupt a bit. It will be way more difficult than with Syndra. Here, the more important thing is don't take unnecessary damage. That's why our best cards are Shelter from the Storm, Sink Below, Black Tech Whispers, just to block out stuff. Black Tech Whispers can then be recurred and block more, just to get more breakpoints out of there. Then Codex of Frailty disables the weapon basically for 1 turn, or it makes it way weaker, and also if they have a setup turn with the arsenal, they can't use it too well. It just takes away like 2 to 3 damage from a turn. Also blocks for 2, it's just not too great, but it can be blocked with everything else, Codex and Leave No Witnesses. Already a very good turn in disruption wise. Speaking of Leave No Witnesses, one of the best cards in this matchup. Also, Crown of Providence gives you some extra speed to maybe, in a crucial moment, get some disruption in if you have an arsenal that is not used at the time. Command and Conquer, always great. It will definitely hit, and if not, they will have a very, very weak turn. And Mark of the Black Widow, again, it's just disruption. You just take some cards out so they can attack with less, if you are able to keep some cards. But most important thing, don't take unnecessary damage in this matchup. It is very, very quickly over with high octane. We need to be ready for that as well. Obviously try to disrupt it, but they can set it up quite regularly, so at least try to be able to block out one of the high octane turns. And now we have the first time where you might ask, oh, why do you have specifically this matchup in the sideboard guide or in the deck tech? Well, it did pick up some points, or it did pick up a bit in popularity and also in how well it performs in the last weekends. So I thought maybe we should talk about the strategies here. It's not too far off from what we had before. Black Tech Whispers put in, and also then Widow Veil Respirator put in. That's just for the 1 arcane barrier that we want, and also the possibility to crack it for Spell Void, just in case we get overwhelmed with Auxilio. Auxilio in general is a good matchup for us because we can disrupt enough whilst ticking down the damage, so they can't have their combo turn too early. If they have it, we just lose. We can't block that out. But if they don't have it, we win. So it's just like more a race to kill them before they have the combo turn. Shelter from the Storm and Sink Below are very great for blocking Gun on the Flash or the like 4 go again attacks to just have like a really good way of blocking it out, not taking unnecessary damage, but still being able to hit back. Command and Conquer is fucking amazing against this hero because the block value of Auxilio is very low. If they have a setup turn to put something very important in the arsenal, they most likely will lose it. They can dig for block cards by discarding instants in your turn, but in my experience, it mostly worked out. So, what are the most important cards against Auxilio? Always the disruptive stuff that is the attacks the arsenal, like Legion of Witnesses, Command and Conquer is amazing. Stuff that takes stuff out of the hand, like Mark of the Black Widow or Persuasive Prognosis, is also very great. Then the 2D reacts, I already talked about them. They are amazing to block the 4 attacks out and to take away a bit of the value machine that they have. Kiss of Death is amazing for the racing because it's basically 6 damage on board, and even if they block it out, you can force 2 damage through with it. Flick Knives is also very important to get those on hits early, and then obviously Black Tech Whispers to block and then also get the reaction out of it, which you will most likely do in this matchup. And Codex of Frailty is always a good thing, but not for the Frailty token here too much because they don't attack with weapons, but for the disruptive aspect of it because they don't have an arsenal too often, and then you can just threaten to get a card out of the hand and destroy the arsenal, which is very good value you can get out of it. And since they can't really deal too well with that value, is why we have quite a good matchup here. So here I'm doubling in a bit of a new waters for me. Um, I didn't have too many experiences with Prism. In my head, it should be a bad matchup. But if I look at the numbers and if I look at how well I perform against it, it's not a bad matchup. I don't really see why. Maybe the disruption is good enough to deal with them, but take this with a grain of salt. I didn't play too many prisms, and I don't know how experienced they were. Um, Crown of Providence and Snapdragon Scales seem to be the right choice. Why not Black Tech Whispers here? They tend to block quite well, especially with the Soul Shield. So you do want to be able to get to go again because you don't want to lose tempo. That's why the Snapdragon Scalers are in there. I put in a lot of go again to deal with the potential angels they can do with Hurl as additional go again. I also put Shred in, which is a yellow in case they have their turn with the library, and also it takes away block value from attacks and from blocking cards and blocking D-reacts. So you can maybe force an on hit and destroy an angel that way, or however you want to deal with it. Then Infiltrate, best go again option from the sideboard otherwise, and obviously Command and Conquer as the potential popper. I was thinking about putting Battlefront Bastion in there, but from the experiences I had, I never met prisms too well. If you have a huge prism problem in your area, definitely make sure that you probably take out Infiltrate because that's more like a go again piece or a value piece in this deck, and put Battlefront Bastion in there. Maybe make space for another one, maybe take out the Schism of Chaos if you have more prisms and less Kanos. That can be like adjusted slightly if you have a huge prism problem, because Battlefront Bastion is very good against prism. But with that, so far it was enough. I don't know if that really is enough against a very experienced player, and I don't know how the matchup in general is against a very experienced prism player. So next up we have Jarl, and that is where my heart bleeds a bit. Because I love Jarl. It is one of the nicest heroes to play, and most fun heroes to play for me. But at the moment, yeah, he doesn't have too much of a good matchup against Slippy. And Slippy is quite out there. Also, Prism is quite difficult. And yeah, Gravy Bones is straight up bad. So how can you beat Jarl? Here again, I go with Crown of Providence, obviously just for the block and the filter, and also the keeping the tempo part of it. And Snapdragon Scale is because Jarl can block quite well, and you want to have that unconditional go again on your attacks. It still is an attack reaction, so perfectly fine. It's very similar to the Prism matchup that we have. We have 2 Hurls, 2 Shreds, and 3 Command and Conquers. The only switch out would be that we don't take the Infiltrate in, but we take Spreading Plague in. Because he blocks a bit more, maybe you can get some Blood Red Box tokens out of it. Then Command and Conquer is amazing. It disables the D-reacts, and it is quite difficult to handle also for a Guardian. Hurl is just some kind of extra possibilities to force damage in, and Treads also makes it more difficult to block. With these kind of battlefield tricks or combat tricks, you can be quite sneaky around Jarl and get some damage in. They don't have this huge turns where they just kill you in one turn. Best thing they can do is fuse Oakenol, which is annoying, but definitely dealable. Um, so what are the best cards against Jarl? Which is definitely Bonds of Agony. You can take out probably one of their best cards from the hand. You just take that away because they will block with the cards they don't want to lose. And if you just attack with one and they block with 3 cards because they don't want to lose any, you can just not activate any attack reactions because they don't know if you have them or not. You can also bluff with it, and then they overblock and they lose cards and value, and they will definitely lose the turn then after that. Then also the combination with Chastanic and Persuasive Prognosis is always very good because it's such a huge uptick in damage in one attack reaction. They most likely will struggle with blocking that one out unless they anticipate it, then you just put it in the arsenal. And also works very well with Bonds of Agony to pop it up for Flick Knives, Go Again attack reaction. And this is already 6, so it goes up to 9 with just 1 attack reaction in hand, which is really, really good. And if you have a Razor Reflex, or not Razor Reflex, the Reflex attack reaction for 0, or something like that on hand, you can even pop it up to 12 with 2 attack reactions, which is like quite the step from 1 to 12, which is very difficult to deal with. Leave no witnesses. Attacking the arsenal is always annoying. They do have equipment pieces to block it out, but you force them to use their equipments. Then Infect is a very good way of chipping in some more damage. Codex of Frailty, always a very good choice, or always a very good card. Plague Hive again prevents them from attacking with hammer in an efficient way, prevents them from setting up or whatever. It's like a very annoying card for that's just pitched. And Command and Conquer, obviously, they have struggles dealing with that as well a bit. Now, the most important thing against this matchup, never, and I say never, use any of your equipments early in the game. Snapdragon Scales is a last resort to deal enough damage in the late game to go for the kill. Otherwise, as soon as you lose one of your equipments, you are open for frostbites, and we can't deal with frostbites too well. Damage is fine, blocking with cards from hand is fine, but do not block with equipment. Keep that equipment in hand or on your body. Don't use it whatsoever unless it's necessary to close off the game. In the late game, you will not get around it, but in the early games, just don't use equipment. So with Victor, I don't really have a sideboard guide because I mostly use the exact same sideboard as in Jarl. And the strategy is also quite similar. Like you can see, it's the same cards as before. The strategy is pretty similar. You want to make it very, very difficult for them to block, disrupt a bit. They will definitely get some clashes in, which we will lose because it's Guardian, we're not. Um, it's definitely more difficult to deal with Victor than with Jarl. But the advantage here is you can actually use the equipment early in the game to prevent some damages. I would still use Snapdragon Scalers because you want to have that unconditional go again on an attack that you have. Yeah, I would say that's pretty much it. It is basically like Jarl, but a bit more grindy, a bit more difficult to get on top of it. And if they steamroll you, then you can't really do anything against it. That's something that Jarl can't really do that well. But it still is a favorite matchup in my opinion because you have so much disruption, so much ways around to get around blocks, and also if they have equipment that blocks with temper, you can completely destroy it with a shred. So they can use it only once, and it didn't really do anything. And now to the dreaded Slippy matchup, so the mirror matchup. Again, we pick up the point because in the mirror matchup, the just raw damage doesn't really cut it because you want to disrupt the other one from doing stuff. So Black Tech Whispers in, Crown of Providence in, basic equipment suite at that. And for the pick up the point, we take Infiltrate, because Infiltrate here is really good, because if we hit, we can actually take their card, which is also our cards. So we do have a value machine there in Infiltrate. Then the D-React to deal with the Slippy's annoying reaction kind of shenanigans a bit better. And Command and Conquer because it's just good. Command and Conquer is good in every matchup, so it's also good in the mirror matchup. And now we come to the strategy, which is the more important thing in my opinion. The best cards against yourself are again Bonds of Agony, Persuasive Prognosis, Just a Nick, and Leave No Witnesses. Obviously also Command and Conquer for dealing with the D-Reacts, depending on how many they play, and basically just get around those disruptions. And now also Blackjack Whispers for the block of the daggers, or potential dagger if they play the same one as I do. Otherwise, it's very good to, for example, block out the Leave No Witnesses with 3 block and the Blackjack Whispers. They are not that keen on blocking, so you will get some go again out of it. Maybe they will block it out, but it's less likely than with Gardens and so on. Codex of Frailty and Plague Hive again disables the daggers for 1 turn, potentially, or disables the setup possibility they have. And here it is very difficult to read the tempo, to read where you are in the game, to see, okay, how many D-Reacts, how many attack reacts did they already use, how likely is this to go through, and then make these micro decisions on the game whilst playing. Like, okay, they used 2 Just a Nick just now, and the deck is still quite thick. So how likely is it that they have another Just a Nick now, or how much likely is it that they just bluff it? If I don't block Bones of Agony now, maybe they will just have reaction shenanigans to put it up to 7. Then you block 7 and hope for the best that it's not a Just a Nick. Something like that. These kind of readings you need to be able to do to get on top of that matchup. It definitely is, like always, mirror matches are not that easy. Mirror matches are definitely a test of skill, and here it is just train the matchup, and also try to read through like when to attack and when to block. It's definitely not the wrong thing to put a D-React into the arsenal. Shelter is mostly used as a D-React in that situation, unless they have like a dagger turn, we can just throw it down, but most likely use it in their arsenal for a D-React to block out the Leave No Witnesses or something like that, to just not take any unnecessary damages. And don't get disrupted too much, so you can go as wide as you want to go with Slippy in that situation. Definitely a matchup to train a bit, and definitely also a matchup that's not too difficult to find people playing on Talishar at the moment, or also in local play groups. It is definitely a lot, quite the loved deck and a lot played deck, so you'll be fine with finding your partners there. Now we come to our first matchup that is definitely not in a good way, like slightly unfavored for us, or in my opinion, quite unfavored for us. I struggle with this matchup quite a lot. We bring the equipment suite of Snapdragon Scalers and Widow Veil Respirator, because we do want to take like the unnecessary damage out, but we will not be able to block too much because we want to be in the aggression here. And Snapdragon Scalers again, because Verdants can block us out quite well, and we do want to have that unconditional go again. Now, what do we put in? We put in Command and Conquer 3 times, Hurl 3 times for the extra speed, Shred 2 times for making it more difficult to block, and then Schism of Chaos. That's because if they want to go into the late game and do like the pitch stacking and so on, we can completely get rid of that. That's the most or the highest use that I have for it. One of the most important cards here, we do want to pressure damage. So Snapdragon Scale is for the unconditional go again, then Leave No Witnesses to get rid of the arsenal stuff, Kiss of Death for the 6 damage in 1 card, and Widow Veil Respirator to take out some of the damages. And if they want to go off early, we can pitch into Arcane Barrier. If they want to kill off later in the game with Arcane damage, we can get rid of 2 damages of that with Arcane Barrier and the Spell Void. Command and Conquer is always annoying because this disabled D-Reacts. Hurl for the extra damage output, Shred to prevent it, and again Schism of Chaos to prevent the pitch stacking and the high damage turns of that, or to make it way more difficult to prepare for those. that's what I got so far. It is slightly unfavored in my opinion. I was still able to win once or twice against it. Have I would say the win rate that is online, that's slightly around like 40%, would also be correct for me. But yeah, that's what I have so far. Maybe you have better ideas how to deal with that matchup on a more regular base, but that's what I came up with, and it works quite decently well. Next up, Florian, another bad matchup, in my opinion. The worst matchup, also by the numbers, it's really, really bad. I take the exact same sideboard as into Verdance, because in my opinion, all of the stuff works as well into Florian. They are very likely to put a direct in Arsenal, so that's why Schism of Chaos can be a tempo piece as well, and also it prevents them from pitch stacking like huge turns for the late game. I'm not sure if that is a huge difference, but I did like it against it. And otherwise, the strategy is exactly the same as in Verdance. We try to not take unnecessary rune chant damages. Here we can actually prevent the 3 damages with the blue, which is amazing. And also that way we can actually use Schism of Chaos defensively as well, whilst not losing a card at all. Be a bit careful about Plague Hive and Chisholm of Chaos being in the deck at the same time. You really don't want to get Plague Hive into the arsenal whilst using Chisholm of Chaos. That would definitely lose you the game. The likeliness of that is very low, but we will see, or you will see how you feel about that. If it's basically at the end of the first deck cycle, you haven't seen either of them, maybe don't use it in that way. Now that concludes all the matchups I want to have a deeper dive into. Now just to some cards that we haven't used yet, which would be Mask of Deceit, which is a very niche card you use against other assassins that are not Slippy. They have the effect of the go again anyway. But Marionette, Uzuri, and Huntsman, for example, they don't have the unconditional go again on their side, so they get it from you. You give them the go again. And if they plan to turn around with your go again and you block with Mask of Deceit, you are not Slippy anymore, so they don't have to go again, and that might end their turn early. That's the only usage of it. Then the other the other Widow equipment pieces are only used in the matchup against Kano, because you can't just take AB1 into Kano, you have to have more AB, and that way, if they have their turn where they go off completely, you can block 6 from the first big pumped attack if needed. If it's just like one big attack and you can go for the kill later, that might be a possibility. Otherwise, just use the AB3 all the time. But that concludes all the matchups that I wanted to go with you. And I hope this little matchup guide helped you a bit, and also this little deck tech helped you a bit to find your way of playing the most represented deck at the moment. I do have a sideboard guide, or better to say the deck list, in the comments. Also the data I used to see how the matchups are from Fabrary and from the Singapore overview. They are also down there, so you can look at the numbers yourself if you want. In my opinion, it's a very good deck to play at the moment. It is definitely the deck to beat, in my opinion. It is quite there. So if you don't want to play Slippy, definitely train into Slippy, because you will meet Slippy a lot of times in the bigger tournaments. Local scenes can vary obviously, but be prepared for Slippy, and as Slippy, be prepared for Gravy Bones, Syndra, and other of those highly represented matchups. If you have anything that's missing, if you have any questions about it, how I deal with certain matchups, please don't hesitate to ask me. But I think we covered quite a lot of it already. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you very much for watching this video. I have some special thanks now that helped me to make this video. First and foremost, my girlfriend. She tested with me this deck quite a lot. She is the main player of Slippy in our relationship, and she gave me quite a lot of changes that she wanted in there. One thing I didn't put in there was the second Hunter's Clave, so if you all think, oh, you're very stupid, she told me so. And also my local scene for testing a lot, and also the Team Turd members for having very well discussions about the meta and which cards that are good at the moment and so on. So yeah, thanks again for watching.